Welcome everyone to this explainer. Today we are diving into a really rigorous, frankly fascinating academic exploration of English grammar functions, unpacking the detailed notes directly from TEMA 25 Notebook LM. If you're a prospective permanent teacher, gearing up for the state exam, or honestly just a highly focused learner who loves the high-level nuances of linguistics, you are in the exact right place. We are going to dissect exactly how the source material outlines the ways speakers express opinion, volition, preference, and emotional states, entirely through the lens of a communicative grammar framework. It's going to be a great lecture. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a rigorous 6-part syllabus for today's lecture on communicative grammar. We'll start with the communicative framework, move right through opinion, volition, liking, and affective attitudes, before wrapping the whole thing up with the crucial EOI pedagogical implications. Section 1, the communicative framework. Here, we're officially moving away from rigid structuralism and stepping into a much more vibrant, functional approach to grammar. Because, think about it, at the C2 level, learners don't just memorize syntax anymore, right? They have to learn how to masterfully perform speech acts within specific social contexts. As clearly outlined by the 2020 Common European Framework of Reference Companion Volume, C2 mastery demands a high degree of precision, appropriateness, and sheer ease. We're looking at how speakers commit to the truth of a statement or assert their will within very specific situational contexts. Language forms simply aren't isolated. They're inextricably linked to pragmatics. And to make sure our analysis is totally airtight, we are emphatically grounding this masterclass in the absolute heavyweights of English descriptive grammar. Our theoretical foundations are built right upon the seminal works of Quirk, Leach, Bieber, Huddleston, and Swan. These are the definitive texts on how modern English is spoken and written, so you can rest assured that the pedagogical approach we're exploring today is scientifically and linguistically sound. Moving right along to Section 2, Opinion, Belief, and Assumption. This takes us right into the realm of cognitive discourse, where speakers signal exactly how committed they are to the truth of a statement. And this brilliantly illustrates a subtle but absolutely critical difference that advanced students really need to grasp. An opinion is typically a judgment derived from observation. So if you say, "It's my opinion that he drinks too much," it strongly implies you've seen evidence of it with your own eyes. A belief, on the flip side, isn't necessarily supported by objective proof at all. Saying, "It's my belief that he drinks too much," relies way more on an internal, personal conviction. And of course, we also have assumptions, which often use the auxiliary will for present predictions based on evidence, like, "I assume you will have all heard the news." Structurally, these functions rely heavily on the nominal that clause. Now, in casual speech, we drop the that all the time, which is called the zero that clause. But formal C2 writing, that demands absolute precision. Take a look at this sentence. "We believed, in a moment of optimism, that the government would look favorably on our case." Because we have that complex parenthetical modification, "in a moment of optimism," inserted right into the middle of the thought, we literally must retain the nominal that to keep things clear. Dropping the that there would make the sentence incredibly clunky and hard to follow. So high-level proficiency is really about making strategic syntactical choices. And a perfect example of this is transferred negation. Instead of saying, "I think he hasn't arrived," native speakers naturally prefer to shift the negative particle to the main verb. So it becomes, "I don't think he has arrived." Mastering this specific syntactical shift, especially with verbs like believe, suppose, and think, is absolutely crucial for learners if they want to achieve a natural, native-like C2 command. All right, moving on to Section 3, the expression of volition. We're transitioning from the cognitive realm to look at exactly how speakers assert their desires and intentions. Volition isn't just a single monolith, it's an escalating scale. I like to think of it as turning a dial up from 1 to 4. It starts at a baseline of simple willingness, which we often express with will or would. Then we dial it up to wish, which carries a bit more formality than simply saying want. Step 3 takes us to intention, realized through focused verbs like intend or aim. And finally, at the top of the scale, we reach firm insistence. Now, when we're dealing with wishes, especially hypothetical ones, the grammar elegantly flexes to accommodate that unreality. Look at the sentence, "I wish you would listen to me." Notice the past tense backshift we're using there. We use would instead of will. This backshift is a prime example of how structural mechanics directly serve pragmatic meaning, beautifully expressing a really strong desire for a change in someone else's behavior. Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4. Liking, disliking, and preference. Let's focus on our affective attitudes and how we precisely articulate the things we favor or reject. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the beautiful, subtle, pragmatic difference between these two clauses. With verbs of liking or disliking, we can use an infinitive clause or an ing clause. On the surface, they seem totally interchangeable, but they really aren't. The infinitive clause expresses an idea or a potentiality, so he likes me to work late means he likes the result or just the general idea of it. But the ing clause? That expresses a fact or lived experience. He likes me working late implies he actively enjoys the actual lived process as it occurs. It's a microscopic distinction, sure, but at the C2 level, that precision is everything.
Next up, Section 5, Affective Attitudes and Emotion. Here, we're introducing the specific linguistic devices we use to inject emotion and emphasis directly into our speech.
Emphasizing a point isn't just about speaking louder, right? It's highly structural. We have pure interjections like wow or exclamations starting with what or how. But emphasis also beautifully comes from stress on the operator. By utilizing a dummy do and placing nuclear stress right on it, like saying you do look pretty instead of just you look pretty, we entirely change the depth of feeling in the sentence. We also rely on negative intensifiers like not at all or not a moment too soon to powerfully underscore a negative statement. But of course, emotion also has to be balanced with tact, especially in formal environments. We modulate our intensity using adverbs, but we also use clever structural workarounds to express disapproval politely. Just look at this rhetorical question. Was it really necessary to be so rude to the waiter? This is a perfect demonstration of how speakers can tactfully express strong disapproval and concern, completely avoiding the need for blunt, aggressive confrontation. Finally, Section 6. EOI Pedagogical Implications. We've covered a whole lot of theory today, but how do we actually bring all of this into the EOI classroom? Let's see how this actually builds into actionable classroom strategy for prospective teachers. These dense theoretical categories translate directly into 4 key didactic units for your C2 students. First up, register awareness. This is teaching students exactly when to use an interjection versus a very formal impersonal passive construction. Second, pragmatic competence. This means actively drilling things like transfer negation so your students actually sound natural in debates. Third is mediation. Equipping students with the precise nouns and structures to accurately summarize highly emotional texts without losing the nuance. And fourth, literature and culture. This involves using rich literary texts to show how would functions for past willingness or how shall is used for strict insistence. Ultimately, the source notes remind us that the whole goal here is to bridge that massive gap between structural grammar and real-world dynamic communication. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder as we wrap up. How will you elevate your EOI students beyond basic repetitive phrases like I think or I like? How will you use the academic theories we've rigorously explored today to creatively empower them, guiding them toward true pragmatic mastery so they can express their unique perspectives with absolute clarity and elegance? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep structuring, and keep learning.